Handout 5 is about non-proportional relationships. And I did touch on this a little bit in the last video, comparing it to proportional relationships. So a relationship between two quantities is not proportional if the ratio is not constant. So on a graph, well, let's talk about a chart. If you had a chart and you did y divided by x on each row, they're not all going to end up with the same number. If you had a graph, it will not pass through the origin, and instead, or it might, and it's a curvy line. But on these, it should all be straight lines. And then instead, the graph will cross the y-axis at the point called the y-intercept. And this is a really important term this year and all through your next few years of math. So the y-intercept is where it touches the y-axis. So I'm going to go down here to this graph. Here's your y-axis. So if you were going to draw a line, let's say right here, whoops, whoa, I'm going to draw a line here on mine. Don't draw this, I'm just going to draw it. If you were going to draw a line, let's say like this, okay, and pretend that's straight, it touches the y-axis at 50. So that would be your y-intercept. So even though this would be a straight line, it doesn't go through the origin, so this is not a proportional relationship. So back to this question, what should be true about the x value in the ordered pair for the y-intercept? Well, what's the x value of this? This ordered pair would be 0, 50. So it is always 0. So you can go ahead and write that in there. It's always 0. Always 0. Okay, so in a search for a gym, so this is kind of like the last one, Hillary found a location that charges $10 as a one-time sign-up fee, which they're never that cheap, and $20 each month, and they're never that cheap. Use the info to complete the following. So we're going to complete the table to show the relationship between number of months at the gym and the total cost. So this is kind of confusing because at 0 months, we're actually going to put $10 here, because basically with that one-time charge, it's just always kind of hanging there. So even at 0 months, you just say there's a $10 fee. So how much does it cost for a 1-month membership? Well, you have your $20 per month, and then you're going to times that on this one by 1, and then you're going to add that membership fee. So you're going to get $30. And definitely do this because that helps you write the equation at the end. Actually, I write the equation first, and then I do that. Let's see here. So the process for 2 months would be, you have your $20 a month fee, and then that's times by 2, because this one is for 2 months, and then we're going to add our $10 fee. So we get 50. So go ahead and do that for the rest of the rows. And and you should pause it. And you should have gotten 70 and 90. And then down here, so this is where you get your equation basically. So we take our constant times whatever number of months we want to, and then we still have to do that membership fee, and that will give us our y. So on this one, what is the slope or rate of change? So on this one, the slope is 20, because every time the rate of change, you're multiplying by 20 every single time. So the value of the y-intercept, that is your one-time fee of $10. And so is the table proportional? No, it's not. And you can say a couple reasons why. First, you can say that if you would do 10 divided by 0 and 30 divided by 1 and 50 divided by 2, none of those end up being the same. So there's no constant. Okay, also you can just say because there's that extra $10 fee. But on the table, you have to look for that constant. Okay, and then we're going to go over to the graph, and I have this dumb line on here now that I forgot, and I don't know if I know how to get it out or not. I probably don't. Oh, boy. We got to... Anyway, forget about this line here, because I did that earlier. So you're going to, using your values, you're going to graph your lines. So go ahead and pause it, and I'll do it. So I went ahead and drew the dots according to these ordered pairs. So at 0 months, you do 10. So you go ahead and draw the line, but I'm not going to. So notice your y-axis is right here, and this is where it crosses it. So that's called the y-intercept, and it's at 10. So what is the slope or rate of change shown on the graph? So on a graph, you can do a couple things. If the dot is exactly on where your 1 is on here, then that's, oh wait, sorry, that is when it's proportional, so never mind. Forget I said that. So you can count up and you can do what we did a couple lessons ago. So you start at 10, you go 10, 20, so it's up 20 and over 1. So your slope would be 20 over 1, and then you just simplify to 20. What is the value of the y-intercept? So that would be this. It would be 10. And then is it proportional? And we know it's not. And then you should write down why it's not so you can refer back to this. You could say the graph doesn't go through the origin. It starts at 10. And yeah, really that's what you should say for a graph. Okay, so we're going to write the equation that represents this. So we talked about it in the last video. We have y equals, and then we have your slope times your x, and then we do plus 10. And it should be in that order. It's not wrong if you don't, but that's the correct order, and I'll explain that later. So do you see the slope in the equation? Yes, in front of the x. That's where it always goes. Do you see the y-intercept? Yes, at the end. Oh my golly. And so what conclusion can we make about the equations? Basically that it's, always going to look like this. This could be minus also. It's plus or minus. And remember, your slope could be negative also. So non-proportional equations will be written in this form. Y equals mx. That was last lesson. But then we also have to add plus, and this is going to be really confusing, b. So m stands for the slope, which we already knew. And b, don't ask me why they call it b, but that is your y-intercept. Don't know where they come up with all these letters and stuff. You'd think it would be called the y, but we already have our x and y for our ordered pairs, so it needs to be called b. All right, so we're almost done here. So for each equation, list the slope, the y-intercept, and if it's proportional or not. So I want you to try it, so pause it. And so I went ahead and did the first one. We got the slope in front of the x. The y-intercept is 9. Make sure you have negative here. And then it is not proportional. So I would like you to try this one for tomorrow. And we're going to do this one. So the slope would be 1.25. The y-intercept, there isn't anything, so you need to put 0 down if you want, because that represents nothing. And this one would be proportional, because it doesn't have that extra like plus or minus anything over here. So go ahead and do this and the rest of it for the next class.